Uh-oh. Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation. We the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket. Open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pit. Still 5 on the floor. Still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court. Still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball. Or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleepy paths or allowed to morning. The nut is sleeping us. Never catch us on. Live from Miami. Report in the heat with 5 reasons sports from the courts to the streets. Yeah. Wake County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. Today's floor plan with me, Brady Hawk. We are going to discuss, so this is a series, truthfully, that started a little bit ago. Ethan and Brady kicked it off. We're looking at individual Miami Heat players, and we want to talk a little bit about what each player can do to improve on something for next year. We're looking at a group that is going to bet on internal improvement, is going to need some of the guys that we know from last season to step up and play well. So we're going to discuss that, and we're going to get into Heat second year big man Kelel Ware today. Before we do, I'm giving a major shout out to Prize Picks. We are in full effect with football season back. You got to use the code 5, F-I-V-E. That's going to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5. It's daily fantasy simplified. You just choose your favorite players, your favorite stats that make sense to you. You choose more or less on those stats. You can do flex plays, power plays. It is the best place to play fantasy sports because it's so easy. You can use all of the different discounts that they do. There's always player projections that are reduced, so you can get really great projections on football. You can mix baseball, basketball, but you got to use the code 5. That's going to get you $50 instantly when you play your first $5. Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sponsor of 5 Reasons Sports and 5 on the Floor. Use that code 5. All right, Brady, you and I haven't done an episode in a while. I feel like we've taken the summer off and doing episodes, but when the season kicks back in and games are happening, I think you'll see Brady and I on more duo pods. But Kelel Ware is where we're going to touch today. He had a really good rookie season. Obviously, there's ups and downs for every rookie. I think the playoffs kind of showed that more than ever. We always talk about the playoffs tell, and there's obviously room for improvement, but he had a all-rookie campaign in his first season with Miami. He ended up being a starter next to Bam Adebayo. These are all things that I think Heat fans wanted to see. Averaged 9 points and 7 rebounds, 64 games. How many did he start here? Now you guys are going to see me scrolling through the different projections here for – so last season, career high 25 points, career high of rebounds was 17. His career high in blocks last season was 6. So you see that he has a lot of things that Miami has needed, shot blocking and rim protection being one of them. So aside from the counting stats – Brady, from your perspective, what did Kelel Ware do best in his rookie season, and what do you think where do you think he excelled most in his first year in Miami?
Yeah, I was going to say we probably, because we're going to talk about what he can improve on later, but it's like I feel like we over-evaluated everything with him this past season just because he was thrown into the fire, just because he ended up being a starter. He ended up being one of their core pieces moving forwards in just their young grouping. That we more so probably were focusing on the negatives of what he wasn't doing right instead of the fact that he was on a trajectory of rookie of the year status at some point. He was looking extremely well. I would say some of the things he did well was offensively, the stuff around the just rolling, just as a roll man. I just thought he was better than advertised in terms of it's usually that's one of the things that's tougher, I think, for young bigs early on. I think one of the few ones I think about with Miami was Precious. I mean, we talk about kind of him on the roll and timing and all that stuff. And I don't think there wasn't many players on the Heat that were saying, well, Kelel's timing's off on the roll, or it's like we can't really find him. Like they were finding him on lobs, they were finding him in the pocket. Like he was just doing a good job in that area. He found a certain shot with that little push shot in the middle of the floor where he kind of I'd like to see him honestly get to more just because it's so clean. He just is very fluid in that area. He didn't really shy away from confidence. I mean, we saw the points in the season where he was shooting the 3-ball well. That was one of the things that had its ups and downs. It's just, but seeing the confidence, seeing the fact that he can hit it if he kind of just works on it in terms of the, like the fluid motion is there. The shot is there. So if that kind of stays, I think he'll be fine. And then defensively, as much as we'll talk about some of the stuff he can improve on, being somebody that can deter shots around the rim just because of his presence, just because of the fact he can block shots in that area, even if he mistimes it. Like he could literally jump out of position, which I'm going to talk about later, and he could still end up messing up a shot just because of his size, just because of what he could do around the basket. And that alone is a talent. And I will say, I mean, he was a good rebounder. He was able to kind of gobble up a bunch of, like, you're talking about like bare stats. He was able to kind of do that type of stuff. So like, as much as we over-evaluate every single one of those things that I mentioned, and part like the negative thing about what he could do to change it to his sophomore season, I would say, I mean, I feel like he did a lot of good things in his rookie season. He did a lot of in a lot of different areas where now it's just about what areas of his game do you want to focus on? Like which ones are the ones that this is going to be you moving forward? Because you're not going to be able to probably check all of those boxes off that I mentioned consistently. And it's just about seeing like which are the most important moving forward.
You brought up a good point about how much we overanalyzed his game. And I think that Heat fans in general, there was a degree of trepidation from fans. And it was because I think the scouting report on Kelel Ware, and he transferred from where he was in Oregon and then went to Indiana. The kind of the soundbite that traveled with Kelel Ware before he was drafted was motor issues. And Heat fans have PTSD to the Whiteside era with anyone that you hear, and Michael Beasley era, honestly. Whenever you hear motor issues, that's going to make Heat fans, squirm a little bit. I thought that he did a really good job of kind of putting to rest some of that stuff. I thought and we're going to talk about what he can get better at. There's probably some like just positional stuff and being in the right place at the right time that rookies are just going to never be perfect at. But he was not kind of meandering around the floor. He's not a guy that I thought looked like he had, like we talk about body language, like none of that really stood out to me. So I thought you really are bringing up something that I think is a good place to start, is that we picked apart Kelel Ware's game in his rookie year, and he probably deserved more credit than he got. I know that the way that the season ended, it looked like there was a gulf between the Cavalier big men and the Miami Heat big men, and obviously that's something that's going to need to be worked out. But I agree with you. I think that he is a guy that didn't get enough credit for at least he's trying to be as mature as possible. He's 21 still as I'm looking at this, so super young. And I think that it's really encouraging that by the end of the season, and I was able to finally he started 36 games, and a lot of that was down the stretch of the year. I think he and Bam being a formidable duo that can actually play together is something we're going to look forward to next year. And although I don't know Spo's going to necessarily always lean in that direction, I think you need to be able to play two bigs together. And they found at least a guy that we think in concept can be a player that can play next to Bam. Before we get into what he can improve on, you think he starts from day one this season, or you think there's any chance? Ethan's thrown around this Nico idea, and I think Spo may lean in that direction eventually, but I am of the mindset that I think Ware and Bam and Wiggins is the starting front court day one. Do you disagree or agree there? What are your thoughts?
I do think there is just a little bit of recency bias of this offseason. I'm a Nico guy. Like, I'm a big Jovic guy, and we kind of talked about that. But I do think start of the season, I think it still will be Ware. I mean, this is what they prepped for and gotten to this point. I know Nico's kind of the swing player of this roster and this young build. We've got to keep bringing that up. But I honestly think he's going to fit better with the bench unit. Like, I just like that's also another thing we probably overanalyze is the starting lineup thing, and that ends up happening every season. I'm just not like it happened before because it's like if you have Tyler Hero, Norman Powell, Bam Adebayo, and we'll throw Wiggins in there, even though he sometimes likes to play off the ball. That's a lot of guys that are going to take up a ton of usage to start games. I want Nikola Jovic in this role this season to have the ball in his hands consistently, and I think the way to do that is bring him off the bench, bring him with some of these defensive guys, let him play with like Davion, Pella, and play with some shooting, and then he could kind of run the show a little bit. So I do think they're end up leaning that way. And with that said, I think Kel'el seems like a better fit for the overreactions that Tyler and Norman Powell are going to see. Like if things click between Tyler and Powell, which is kind of the biggest thing storyline of the season offensively for this team, if that's happening, Kel'el's going to see a ton of opportunities on the roll. Like it makes because we keep talking about the Bam Kel'el thing, and that's why I was probably one of the best parts of the Norman Powell pickup is it helps that big man duo, honestly. Like they needed more shooting next to those two to make it work. And I feel like it's just a much cleaner look. It's just a much cleaner fit, it feels like. So I do think Kel'el starts. I think there was just a lot of stuff being thrown in this offseason. I mean, the summer league thing and like all this stuff, I think Kel'el will be fine. I really do. I think a lot of this stuff is going to be kind of just looked at in a certain way. I do think, with that said, we're going to talk about in a second, there's a lot of stuff he needs to grow with. There's a lot of stuff he needs to improve on. But I just think they're phrasing it this way, and this is what I think Ethan's hinting at with some of the stuff he's saying. This isn't – Kel'el doesn't have the starting lineup job today, like right now. Like having that mindset like he's the starting center, I think it's just that you don't want to have that mindset. You want to go into camp and say, well, but you can get the starting 4 spot. Kel'el, you could get the starting 5 spot. Like you want them to be able to compete in camp and still have that drive and have something to earn. So I think they're going to do that. I think they will say that. I think Spo will say like he might say we have no starters. We have 3-4 starters. Like he might just say something just to like kind of push that. But I think ultimately Kel'el's going to end up earning that spot.
Yeah, I think that they start that way. I'm interested to see the first hint of losing, whether it's 3 straight or, you've blown leads, just the stuff we've seen in the past, how quickly Spoelstra starts to juggle around, even guys like Davion Mitchell, if we talk about in the backcourt. Like, I think Davion is a case of a player that may not start for Miami, but he probably will be top 5, top 6-ish in minutes. Do you think Ware, despite whether he starts or not, top 6 is going to be too difficult? So let's just say you think that he is top 8 in minutes this year for Miami?
Kel'el's he has to be. I mean, that's a problem, right? If he's not, I mean, the issue is just the closing minutes is what cuts into these guys' minutes. I mean, that's what brings them down a little bit because, like you said, Davion is somebody. I think Pella's somebody to keep an eye on. That I think, specifically if there's injuries and stuff, I think Pella's going to close some games this season. Like he's going to end up getting his minutes are going to go up in general. Kel'el has to be top 8. I mean, if you have even if Nico jumps in, which I think Nico probably will be higher than in total minutes this season, just in terms of his role. Davion, as you said, but right after that, it has to be Kel'el. I can't see many other players on the bench jumping him in minutes. But look, they also are in a position where they have no backup big. So, like, they're forcing Kel'el to be the starting center, but also he's going to be their backup big. Like, he's going to play in that possession. When Bam's out the game, Kel'el is in. So he's going to probably play a lot more minutes than we probably even anticipate. And other thing about it is, I mean, that cuts into his minutes is the foul trouble. And that's something that needs to improve as well as we talk about that. But it's staying on the floor as long as possible. Like, not just Spo pulling him because he had a bad possession, but, like, not limiting himself by getting in foul trouble or having those mental lapses. But that's kind of thing that happens in a rookie season. That's the kind of thing you kind of want to see him improve on moving into next year.
Yeah, so I think to your point, I think it's going to be an open competition in camp for everybody except probably Tyler, Bam, and Wiggs. I think like they may frame it in that direction and say like all the spots are available. But I think we all know that the highest ceiling for this Miami Heat team probably includes Ware out there. And it includes Hero and Norm. To your point, having Bam and Ware on the floor with those two is going to be huge. And that seems to be probably the 2 best backcourt players on the roster, although I think Davion is going to try to wiggle his way into as many minutes as possible. It'll be interesting to see the way Spoelstra handles the first bit of adversity and just how quickly he pivots to a different lineup. But I think Ware does start at the beginning of the season. Going to give a quick shout out to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. It's $2.99, $3.99 on your Apple device. This is where you can get the most Miami Heat anywhere. We have over 10 different channels. You can talk Heat basketball, but a ton of other stuff. You can migrate off of all the many different social media apps into one place to talk with the most intense, knowledgeable, sometimes grumpy Miami Heat fans. Just depends on the day, but this is definitely where you're going to find the most passionate group of Heat fans plugged into all the information around the team. Check out Off the Floor. The link is in the description of this episode. It is the best place for Miami Heat, the most Heat anywhere. Off the Floor, Discord. So now what is he going to improve on? Kelel Ware is kind of the next part of this. And as I'm looking at minutes from last season, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys ahead of him in minutes per game. Now, obviously, that's just I just wanted to give some context to what we were talking about earlier. Earning more minutes is going to mean staying out of foul trouble, and it's going to mean that the defense looks good with him on the court. Am I oversimplifying that? And then we'll talk about individually where Ware can improve. But am I oversimplifying that those are kind of the keys for him?
I would say decision-making is kind of my biggest, easy way to simplify it. Is because there's a lot of ways you can go with that, with a lot of things you're kind of mentioning. The defensive thing is the one thing that comes to mind in improvements, containing, staying down, the amount of times where he would unnecessarily jump around the basket to get out of position to lead to either an easy pass for a bucket or an offensive rebound opportunity, or just ways where the guy is 7 foot. The guy can just stay grounded, put his hands up, and he's going to contest the shot. He doesn't need to jump out of position. So it's that type of decision-making. There's the decision-making on the roll that I talked about. I mentioned him being good on the roll, but the thing that needs to improve as well is the screen set. It's just staying there for maybe a half second longer to make connection on the screen before going, as Bam does, which is he's kind of a good guide for that. There's just when I think about, because there's the motor thing that needs to improve that people would probably mention. The easiest one I could mention is adding size. I mean, that's just an easy thing to say, but I don't think of that as an improvement. I'm more so thinking on-court improvement. The number one thing would be him adding muscle, adding size going into next season. But I think just in terms of improving his game, it's not an overarching, this guy needs to have a 40% three ball. That's also a little crazy to say too. I just think it's the little things. I think that's what will jump his game completely. If he just gets better in the things I mentioned, the screen setting, the contesting, the stuff around the basket where he just takes smarter shots on those. Maybe he takes a couple more of those push shots instead of the tough fadeaways. I think there's just being a smarter basketball player, higher IQ player. And that's just what happens coming off rookie seasons. It happens all the time. I mean, he's going to we saw what happened with Jaime. He's going to end up getting scouted now. It's going to be a different level of scouting. That those habits last season, there's going to be a much easier way of cutting that stuff off. If a guy gets in the basket and Kelel's in front of him, they know that if they throw a hard pump fake, he may jump out of position. That's the type of stuff that needs to change. Is there's just the smaller elements. So I do trust. The one thing, because people talk about his motor that's been brought up, and I know that got that brought up again this offseason. But he's not somebody that's not he works. He's the things you see this offseason. He's somebody that's always in the gym, willing to improve. It's never been that. It's more so doing stuff on the court consistently, just going at 100% constantly. And that's kind of be the thing going into next season. But I don't have any doubts that he's going to improve his game. We've seen him improve even from his college years that you mentioned, year over year. So I think with a lot of the Heat players, when we're going to do this different guys that we think are going to improve, it's a main thing. If it's a three ball or finishing or defense or this. But Kelel was one of the few players when we talked about it, was I don't think it's a main thing. I think it's more so the little things, a combination of all the little things that are going to make him such a better player than it is one specific thing, if that makes sense.
No, it really does. And you talk about screening, it's going to be the little things that keeps him on the court, probably stuff that doesn't show up in the box score. This team is last in the league in blocks every damn season, I think almost by design. So any degree of shot blocking and rim protection, I think is going to be something that he can provide. And he did chase shots last year, but it was different than the way Hassan would chase shots. I guess, and I'm trying not to be biased here, but obviously I have my qualms. But what Ware wasn't trying to get his 2K rating up. I think he just is legitimately trying to make the right play. And it's just there's a naive level of like what he's trying to figure out. And it's almost like he's building the plane as he's taking off as a player. So it's like a lot of development in the moment as he's playing. So that is where I think maybe he got off balance at times or was in the wrong place. It wasn't because he's hunting, trying to get a bunch of blocks so that he can chase triple doubles and stuff like that. So it's not a selfish streak at all. I think that the way he responded to Spoelstra's really blunt way of communicating in Summer League was notable, the way that he bounced back from that. And then when he scouted this season, you bring up the point about the way Jaime kind of regressed in year 2. It'll be a real shock to the system if 2 rookies in a row have that kind of stunted development. And I don't think that that's, to your point, Ware's game. I think that if he does the little things, is going to get enough opportunity. They need bigs to play. They're going to need his size. I think he can stumble his way into 20 good minutes a night, if not more, just by protecting the basket, taking the shots when they're open, and doing the little things. And then, like, if the team comes together, he could end up, like I said, maybe being top 6 or 7 in minutes, which would be huge for Kelel Ware in year 2. I think that is something that it will mean a few things. It'll mean that the guards are either being covered up or defending better than we expect. It's going to mean that the Ware and Bam, are we calling that Wham these days? That offensively is working. And so those are going to be good signs. I think like that's if you're going to walk away from this show with one thing, if Ware is in a prominent role next season, it probably means really good things for the Heat as a team. Unless obviously the things go in an opposite direction and they're just playing all the young guys. But I think as presently constructed, if Ware is playing big minutes, it's going to be a big thing for the Miami Heat next year to be a lot more competitive, not only with the Clevelands of the world, but just protecting home floor, protecting leads, things like that are going to be huge for this team because the margin for error is going to be small in the Eastern Conference, even despite having some teams without their best players. Final thoughts on Kelel Ware before we close. I know that Eternal, there's probably a few others that are going to be angry that they weren't included on this episode about Ware's development, but final thoughts on Kelel before we get out of here.
Yeah, my final thoughts, I mentioned adding the weight, but I think even if that doesn't, because it's always tough to do that consistently, especially if the cardio that they run during the season, if they gain it by training camp, they end up losing it by the point of like game 6. But I would say just physicality is like the one thing I want to see from him, because I felt like there was too many points last season where like not just getting pushed around because he was weighed less than other guys, but it's just like you just want him to like him being involved helps. Like I remember we talked about Wiggins, like when he was aggressive, they were a better team. Well, when Kelel Ware is physical, like when you're feeling him on the boards, when you like feel him on defense, when he's just kind of involved and being physical, I just feel like they were a better overall team last year. And I think they're going to need that more this season. Like losing a guy like Haywood, and I'm thinking about some of the guys in their rotation, they need physicality. They need some guy, like somebody that's going to like, they need a dirty work guy. And I don't know if Kelel is a dirty work guy, but I think he can get to that point if he's blocking shots and just mucking games up on defense. Like I think they can get to that point. And if you're running Bam and Kelel together and the offense isn't as great as the offense isn't as great as we always think it's going to be, so it's going to be a little bit less, you're going to have to get to that point where it gets a little ugly. So just in general, I want him to be a more physical player. And I think that was one of the disappointing things of Summer League. Wasn't that like, okay, Kelel is not like dropping 45. It was like, I just wanted to see him be way more physical than everybody else because he is stronger than a lot of these guys that are entering Summer League, and we didn't get to see that really. But I just want to see that at certain points next season where he's just able to kind of dominate as a big, just with his pure size. Like I just think that's the point they're going to have to get to, and that'll change scouting reports alone because then you can't push him around. Then you can't kind of move him around. It's just about, okay, it gets to a point like with Bam where they're like, we can't go at Bam. We just have to get Bam out of here. Like we got to get Bam away. And if Kelel can be somebody that's just a physical presence, that makes it a whole lot harder to scheme up against.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a few years for him to be obviously physically, the strength and conditioning program in Miami is going to help him a ton. But the other part of it is it's a mindset thing. You're right. Like, he almost has to be like Debo from Friday and like go into the games looking to be an enforcer. And I think that'll help the Heat a ton. I'm with you. I think that it's a lot of the stuff that is won't show up in the box score. It's going to be the little things that like only Brady and Coach Spo are going to be able to call out after the game. So those post games will be interesting. And those are going to be the little things that keeps Ware in the rotation and continuing to ascend. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm with you. I think that he starts. And if he does bring that physical presence that the Heat sorely lack, it's going to mean good things for this team. So I think that this is one of many series where we're going to talk about players and what they have to do. It's going to be a little harder to identify individually that Ware has improved, but we'll make sure to keep you plugged into that here on 5 on the Floor. Thank you for joining us, Brady. Thanks for your time. We're going to keep covering all the different players on the team. We'll get you to training camp. Shout out to Mercy for the new intro. Peace.